How you doing? This is Aaron Beasley. So I wanted to make something clear. People are talking about the tourism is down, and that's true, but you got to understand when you're traveling abroad, man, there's a lot of factors to consider when we're talking about a abroad mindset. Like again, the tourism is down amongst non-families, and it's down from people of color like me and you. Now, essentially, we're talking about people who are partiers, people who go to the club, and we're talking about people who essentially have this party life. They're investing in the prostitution and drugs and things of that nature. So since this makes up the majority of the tourists and the people that are visiting, that doesn't count the families and the people that are actually coming to these places to live a simple lifestyle. Like me being a man of faith and my family of 4 kids, okay, along with my wife, we're 6 people. And one thing that's very important to consider when we talk about that is that these groups, typically when we travel abroad, we tend to stay where we're at and live a simple lifestyle. So the whole narrative that tourism is down is true, but it's just not true amongst black or brown people with responsibilities and families. So if you're looking to go to these places, man, you want to make sure it suits a lot of your habits. Okay, so that whole narrative is only tied to those group of people. But as far as Thailand goes, do a quick 360. Thailand is a beautiful place, as you can see. So it's simple, it's quiet, it's suitable for kids. People talk about, it's safe and things of that matter, but you got to think, okay, and look at the stats. If you Google right now what countries are top 5 in trafficking and in crime, okay, oh, dog over there. We're talking about places like America.
Hey, Daddy, I'm scared.
Oh,
I'm scared.
It's ironic we're talking about saving. There's a big old bulldog right there.
Yeah. Oh, so tiny.
Tiny but strong. So, again, we're talking about trafficking and kidnappings and such. You're going to get this fear mongering amongst people who live a certain lifestyle. And again, if they're afraid, they've probably never been to these places, nor have they looked at the numbers. Okay? Because you're not going to get that whole kidnapping sense and that whole, hey, your kids are in danger, you're being held for ransom in places that have good medical and a good infrastructure. Like Thailand, for instance. Now, the community that we live in a community that is the higher middle class of the Thai people. Okay, so they're used to seeing foreigners, and we're here with the locals, and there isn't any racism involved. So people would try to fearmonger you with racism and such. But if you look at the numbers and if you look at the data, again, a lot of times, man, America tries to paint this narrative that if the darker your skin, okay, the worse off you are and the most unsafe you are. I don't know why, but that's just the narrative. When you go to these other places, okay, you are valued. You're treated like a person because it's about your nationality, not necessarily your skin color. So us moving out here was a no-brainer, okay? And that counts for all of Asia Minor. So we're going to check out Vietnam next month. And then from there, we're going to check out China and give you an honest perspective. Because, again, a lot of these news and things that's coming out about Thailand and living in Asia, they're not geared towards the black experience. Okay? And they're also not geared towards people who seek to live a simple life and not invest in the prostitution and drugs and, just those greedy self-consuming lifestyles. But if you're a person of faith and if you're just a person that's looking to just build, get out of debt, really find peace, healing, and raise your family. These are one of the places that you could do that in, with no systematic redlining and, just the whole nine. Remember, the KKK, Proud Boys, like CIA, those type of organizations are not in these places. Although they have their own form of intelligence, think about it. These places were never colonized. So there was no mindset of racism set in by these nations. They're very cultured, But one thing I have learned is when you go to places that don't have a lot of good infrastructure and that are really poor, been poor for a long time, there tends to be a lot of crime. Because wherever there's a place where people are starving, those are places where you have a lot of high crime. Like Egypt. You don't want to go to Egypt. You hear people talking about Nigeria. Man, you fly into Nigeria, people are begging. You're probably going to get kidnapped, robbed. But again, it's very cheap to live there as well. I found 6 to 5 bedroom condos, luxury in Nigeria for sale for as little as $250 US cash. So you're like, oh man, that's an awesome deal. But there's always a catch to it. There's a catch to everything. Even in Thailand, the catch to Thailand, I feel like is, it's so good here. I guess it's the groceries, the red meat. There's not a lot of mass meat production. So you're going to run out of meat pretty quick. Stores are going to be out of stock because there isn't no mass production. But to me, I feel like that's a catch, even though I may not seem too bad. Being an American, we're used to large consumptions of things. So putting things into perspective here. So the next thing I wanted to talk about in regards of the black experience, you guys be very mindful that Thailand's becoming a melting pot. So the people that essentially come here, a lot of them ain't really from here in the sense of the Asian complex. I've been seeing a lot of Koreans, and I can't say the people that are majority prejudice abroad. Surprisingly, it's going to be other foreigners. Okay, I notice other foreigners that look like me or they're from Europe are real prejudiced. Okay, from the Asian perspective, I would say the Koreans and are known to be prejudiced, and I had to see for myself, and the Koreans out here, they pretty much are. Can't lie about that fact. But when it comes to the Thais and the Chinese, they got a pretty good reputation. And some people throw Japanese in there. But when we was in Japan for the little time that we was, I felt like it wasn't enough time for us to really see it. But one thing I put together is wherever there is greedy people and people who are self-absorbed due to their riches, they're going to be jerks. So in those places, I guess you kind of see that. But as far as being out of Thailand, and people always ask me, what's it like with the black experience? It's all positive, and it is ultimately better than America's. But as far as the tourism being down, it's down amongst the bad people they're trying to keep out. Okay, 200 people were just arrested in Thailand. 200 foreigners were just arrested because they didn't keep up with their visa processes. So a lot of these new rules and regulations coming up are from bad people. There was a foreigner, a backpacker, who ran out of money. Okay, so he decided to rob a jewelry store. And what gets me is that America will paint a bad picture about black people, but when you look abroad, it's the caucus foreigners that are doing a lot of the crimes here in Thailand. The black folks with families, we come here and we chill, we mind our business because we're taught to mind our business. But the world will tell them that, oh, these guys are thugs and etc. and yada yada. But when they talk to us, they find out like, hey, these guys are regular people. But when they looking at the crime, they're seeing that it's not our people that look like us. Even my military friends, they tell me, they're like, hey, this might be a little bit of TMI, but the service from the lady boys come majority from the Korean guys and the European guys. So they're saying the whole lady boy hustle is simply because of these specific groups of people. You know, the numbers don't lie, but I'm not going to sit back and let people paint my people in a bad picture when we're simply just trying to live and find a simple way of living our lives, because we don't go to other countries to break crimes. Now, granted, Nigerians do have a bad reputation when it comes to just abroad in general. Again, we got a poorer country. It's a country with a lot of natural resources when it comes to oil and diamonds and things like that. So America got their hands in all those areas. And the areas that have a lot of mineral and especially oil composites, look who's there, America. All in there to steal resources. And the people, they end up starving, they end up poor, they commit crimes. You know, so ultimately the breadcrumbs follow to the corporate when it comes to that. But as far as from the black narrative, being in Thailand, man, and being American, African American, being a native of Colorado, then living in Houston, California, then abroad with the family, I would say the black experience is wonderful. Getting out of the States is like, it really feels like an escape, and you will find more peace. You know, it's as simple as, you know, the government and the GMO foods, man. You want to get away for your health. But as far as like, you know, what you do on your leisure time, pick your country based on that. But as far as the people that are still filled with faith, still going hard for the Lord and trying to raise their families, and at the same time dealing with systematic racism back home, I would say abroad, you don't see none of that. And I made a controversial post on my TikTok about how we were leaving. And one of the reasons was leaving the racism in America. A lot of those people, they were angry because they can't believe that their country is like that. But it's in their history. You know, and not only that, when the rednecks would tell me like, hey man, you guys, your people is the problem, etc. I'm like, well, I don't see how that is when, you know, we got the Epstein stuff going on, and let's forget about color. Let's just look at the country as a whole. You know, we have people simply trying to poison their own citizens. You know, we're putting chemicals in clouds, the food, you know, so it's really not about a skin color thing. I feel like that's a distraction to keep us away from each other. But at the same time, it becomes a skin color thing when people band together to try to demonize a certain group of people, you know. So when you guys got time and, you know, to check out these points and review the resources, check out a book called, you know, Without Sanctuary. And this is the type of knowledge they're trying to keep away from the schools when it comes to systematic racism. And if you're a person that isn't black but want to understand that, check it out. It is a part of American history. Books like The Delectable Negro, that's another one where, you know, these crazy slave owners used to eat black slaves and feed babies to alligators. You know, sounds absurd, but it's like, what was all that about? But yet, you want to criticize me for something I can't control, like a skin color, and say that I'm a bad person because the CIA and, you know, they didn't want us coming up. It's as simple as, you know, Black Wall Street. That was attacked by the government. That place was bombed. As soon as we tried to do good for ourselves, it seems like it wasn't working out. None of that history is abroad. None of that history is in Asia and things like that. It's an American problem and an American issue. So, escaping the rat race, the answer is coming abroad. I feel like it doesn't matter where you go as long as it suits you and your family. But as far as tourism being down, you see those videos? Look at who's doing the videos. Look at their lifestyles, okay? Look at their moral construct. You know, are these people that's just looking to party all the time, be backpackers, live selflessly, selfishly and just feed off of the system and get mad when it doesn't play into their agenda? Or are these people who are actually, for the people and leave a legacy for others? It's up to you.